was found here and produced here, and it was a large plant for a long time that was supplied Eastern Oregon. In fact, it got up to 1.2 million barrels a year were produced here in lime. Although there were a lot of lime was produced from here, the community was never very big. Reportedly, it peaked at 18 in the 1940s. So obviously people probably drove in to work here, and just a few people lived here. They did have a post office. And then when the deposits were depleted, they moved on up the road to a couple neighboring towns. And so there's really nothing much left here. There's just a few signs of that there were things here. And it's a lot of private property, so it's hard to really see if there's much at all, but it's a incredibly beautiful area right along the Oregon Trail, and I always like stopping at a place with a unique name, and lime is a unique name. There are a lot of ghost towns in Baker County, Oregon, and Sumpter is kind of one of the most visited, touristy, I guess you could say. Sumpter was a gold mining town and really took off around around 1900 when they were able to get a railroad to come out this way. It's a beautiful drive. If you ever take the drive out here, it's a beautiful drive on a scenic byway. And but back then there was no way to get out here, and so once the railroad was developed and came out here, really boomed, and the mining became huge, and there were a couple thousand people that lived here. And then, as is the story with all these mining towns, eventually that's gonna dry up, and people are gonna move out because the jobs aren't here anymore. And now there's a couple hundred people. It's actually made a little bit of a comeback. It got very small, and then it's increased a little bit gradually over the last couple of decades, but it's still maybe a tenth of the size that it used to be. And it's now, like I said, kind of a tourist spot. It's very beautiful. There's RV and campgrounds and things like that, and a lot of old buildings that they've made into places that you can tour, kind of like this dredge that's behind me. And so let's walk around, check out Sumpter, and show you what they got. Cecil, Oregon is right on the original Oregon Trail. And it was, they crossed Willow Creek right here, and it was an important stagecoach stop in the 1860s. And so this is an old area. This store behind me, the Cecil store, is one of the neat things to see. There's a couple other older things here, and but then right on the railroad. And then there's some houses. Actually, here's some music being played. So there's like 1 or 2 houses and a bunch of farming in this area. It's hard to find information about like how big it was. Only thing I could find was in 1940 it had 15 people. So I think there's less than 15 people now. There may be just a handful of people. The last train that came through here was in 1994. So very cool spot. It's very beautiful dirt roads to get out here. So I'm in Bridal Veil, Oregon, and right behind me is the post office for Bridal Veil, and it's one of the only things that is here in the town, and it's operates because of it's kind of like a highly sought after postmark, and weddings, things like that. So Bridal Veil post office is still here, and cemetery. There's still a cemetery here. But this was an old logging town. We're right here right off the Columbia River, in the hills, mountains, and it is a very beautiful area, very scenic drive to get here. And also behind me is the expressway, so you can hear all the cars rushing by. We're also very close to the Bridal Veil Falls, which is how the town got its name. The guy right back there walking around, he's the postmaster. He told me that there's really not much left of the town except for this post office, which actually is not the original post office. And then just an outline of the lumber kind of building down near the river. And so it was, like I said, a timber and logging town for like 50 years. And then that business ended. And so those companies basically were running the town, and then they moved out and they sold it to someone who worked or owned the craft food company. So they started making the wooden boxes for craft food in this town, Bridal Veil, and they did that for a decade or so, and then the town kind of closed down basically. So those boxes from the 1950s and 60s for the craft food company are highly collectible items. So if you have anything from that time, it might have been made here in Bridal Veil, Oregon.
Hey, how's it going?
Just taking a look.
Oh, yeah.